a natural disaster shuts it down would completely destroy my infrastructure in the first place, well, then you might want to look at a generator. You might want to look at a well, a house with a well. You might want to look at partitioning the food that you get and sourcing your own food.
I've never had a time in my professional life where Americans have been more concerned about their own self-protection.
Okay, welcome to part 2 of my interview with Mike Glover from Fieldcraft Survival, former Green Beret, former agency operator, counterinsurgency specialist, amazing communicator, great entrepreneur, just a good dude, you know. And his company is outstanding. And in this part of the interview, we go into kind of the status of the industry, the fact that there's, infighting, things like that. What's important right now? What is the state of, inspiring young men? And, where does Mike see the world right now? Why is preparedness so important? And I wanted you to hear it from somebody who's looking at it a little bit differently. I'm very much into the self-protection side of it, the brain, body, and then outward with the tools. Mike's training as far as, the firearms training and everything else that they do. What I really love about them is they ask the intelligent questions, meaning it's very easy to show people how to punch, holes in paper. But then, asking, hey, how do you see yourself deploying this weapon? How do you see yourself using this? Have you thought about ramifications of what you're about to do? Mike asks all the right questions, not just looking at cool techniques. And so again, I think this is a very important step for you to understand. And when you're looking for good instructors, you want to hear people talking the way Mike Glover's talking. It makes all the difference in the world. So make sure that you take advantage of this and enjoy my second part of my interview with Mike Glover. I've had people talking shit about me for 30 years. It's funny. It's sad. It's really sad. It's sad in the veteran community when they do it. There's a lot of weird shit that happens. Guys that were brothers, in stuff, and then get out in the real world. One guy has more success than another guy or something like that. And you see these people just throw flames everywhere. And, I think what's important is that what keeps you on point is you don't take yourself seriously. You take your mission very seriously. You take your education. Anytime I'm presenting, it's for the people that I'm presenting for. I want them to get it. I want them to have the information, and people can see that, and it's so obvious in your organization, and you paid the price for it, man. You've had your things. I beat everybody. I'm an original canceled culture. I was kicked out of the UK. I'm still kicked out of the UK for having an opinion on self-protection.
Insane.
Oh yeah, 2011, I am banned. It was very, very funny. But I understand that. But you guys, I have to say, your community, I look at you guys because you guys are all, younger than me. Man, the stuff you guys got to deal with social media is like, I remember when I started my business, if I had to deal with social media, now there's huge positives to it. But of course, the venom and the toxicity and the fact that somebody can shut you down. Do I have it right? Didn't Shopify just abandon you at one point?
Yeah, they completely shut us down, took our website, took all of our data.
Yep.
Took everything, and we had to build it from scratch.
Yep. Yeah. I had a similar thing happen years ago with our credit card company. They just decided that they didn't think we gave enough of a refund, and it was a year. I always give 365 days on everything I do. When I heard that about you, it's just like, and the fact that you recovered from that, you rebuilt from that, and you just learned. But man, it makes you think. Again, you're getting self-reliant. I noticed. I heard you just about even your clothing company. You're making sure that you control the supply chain and everything. And I'm telling you that just as a guy who's seen it that way over the years, you're doing it in a very, very well thought out way. And it's nice to see it. And I know there are guys like the Black Rifle guys, and they're awesome, and it's great. But again, they're in an easier market. They're not in this market. You're in a really tough market, especially with what's going on right now. And I think it's more important. And the one thing that I really see this, and I want to kind of like go into this, the status of young men right now, and they're clamoring for some sort of leadership. I see a lot of them gravitating to, you know, a lot of these guys have become, you know, like Jocko, yourself, and other guys have become, Andy and stuff. These young guys flock to it because they don't have anything in their life. They don't have anybody helping them out. They don't have anybody there. You guys are providing such mentorship to people you'll never even meet, and make differences. That's such a huge positive to focus on when the crap hits you, you know, because, you know, you guys are really doing real good. And I know, because I got a 26-year-old son. I've got some, my youngest is, well, I have 8-year-old twin girls, and then my 11-year-old, but he will sit there and he will listen to podcasts with his older brother on stuff. And he's got like Jocko's books and stuff. I've got them, you know, going up, we're going to be going up to Park City, and they're all excited because I showed them your place, and they're going to go up and check it out. What are you seeing with young guys, young men and stuff? Because there's no outlets for them, you know, there really aren't. They're being kind of suppressed. And when you realize how small the military is, you know, in respect to the population, a very small portion of young boys ever get into the military, you know, respectively, when you look at our population.
Yeah, I've always been curious about that. And you know, I grew up with a father figure who was a great man, who was empathetic. He tucked me in and kissed me goodnight every single day. And, you know, but he was hard. I mean, he was a military guy. He worked for the Department of Corrections for 20 plus years. Yeah. And growing up in that, I was very thankful that I had that father figure to kind of lead me down certain roads and paths. What I've seen is now, with the saturation of technology and media, porn, video games, all of the things that strip us away from our actual reality, our tangible reality, a lot of kids are lost. And I get that. The breakdown of the family home, this demasculation of men because being a man is a bad thing. It's problematic. So one, if you're a boy, fighting is part of who you are. That's ingrained in your DNA. I mean, genetically, likely the reason that you survive, that you're able to even listen to this podcast, is because somebody before you had suffered greatly and has fought for everything that you get to sit in your routine and your habits and your great life, especially here in America. I also think that young men should serve in some capacity. And when I tell people especially guys who don't have the ability to serve because they got hurt, whatever that might be, there's other ways to serve your community and your family even that lend itself to service. A lot of men don't understand that they can be empathetic, that the perception of who they are is different than who they actually are. You know, I was told early on in my special operations career that perception is reality, and I get that. But reality is also reality. And I think when somebody called me an influencer once, it kind of blew my mind. And I said, well, I don't want to be an influencer. And then I realized over time, not only are you an influencer, but you have to take that role seriously, because young men, especially young men, 90% of my following is young men. They're looking up to me, and I get it. I mean, when I grew up, I was reading John Plaster books on Mac v. SOG, on on Special Forces, Green Berets in Vietnam, and those were my mentors through the written word. That was our way of receiving the information and getting excited about this fight, this life. And they don't have that, but they have the podcast, they have the access and direct messages. And I'll get a kid who says, Mike, I want to serve, but my family's not on board. I don't know what to do. I got a heartache about it, and I want your advice. And that started happening years ago. And I would say, hey man, well, what do you want out of life? Well, I want to serve. I want to fight. Whatever it was in their value, they wanted to do it. And I said, well, just do it. And then the next day they would DM me and say, hey, Mike, I signed up for Ranger Battalion, like you said. And I'm like, that's all it took. And in many cases and instances, kids are looking for the solution. They're looking for the answers. So I take it very seriously. I think it's a thing, and I'll burden that responsibility because I want kids to grow up into men and adults that are serving this country, that are doing good for their families and their communities. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, we're lost as a society. Where kids have 5,000 followers and they think they have 5,000 friends. All of that gets recalibrated when you serve in the military, when you go to Africa, when you see plight and struggle and real struggle. It kind of resets that world perspective, resets everything that you think about life. And I think that's important. One, I want people to be willing to expose themselves to challenges. I want them to serve this country. And also I want them to know they're not alone. It's okay to look at mentors. It's okay to look at the Tim Larkins and the Mike Glovers of the world and go, man, I want to be like that dude. Because in your tribe, the tribe is just not isolated to your family, to your friend group, to your peer group, who, by the way, might be full of a whole bunch of scumbags. You need to look outside of that, find that mentor, and then change your life on your own. I find nothing wrong with it, and I hope in some way I'm making an impact on these young men because I do take it seriously.
Well, here's the other side of it. So I love interviewing positive role models like yourself, but also I've interviewed former leaders of the Aryan Brotherhood. I just did Sammy Gravano, former underboss of New York, under John Gotti. And what's very interesting is when you go in depth with these guys, and I've also a lot of other criminal elements that I bring in, because oftentimes when it comes to self-protection, some of the best information comes from the worst people. And what's really interesting is when you get these guys' story, there was nobody there at that point. The one guy that influenced them was the guy that, and where they felt like they had a community, or they felt like they were welcome to come in, was the gang, was the criminal element. And they're very good at recruiting. And that's why it's so key that there are groups like, your group out there and reaching out to young men and giving them good, positive role models. I mean, I was all over it when I saw that. I love what, the veteran communities, I believe, has really stepped up. And I don't believe it's a financial thing, because I know how hard it is to make money on mentorship and stuff like that. You just don't, you do it because it's part of who you are. But when I try to tell guys and they go, I don't want to do that, I go, hey, listen, if you're just reaching one kid, that's one kid that they're not getting, because that kid doesn't have anywhere else to go, so, answer the annoying question, get them in there, spend a little time. I've seen it make huge differences. And like you said, there's no place for these kids to go right now. The other day, I'll share this with you. You'll probably appreciate this. So I do weight vest walks a lot, and I got a really nice place around here where I get to walk. So I'm walking through the park the other day. I see a ring of kids in the grass. They're all surrounding. Two kids in the middle have boxing gloves on, shirt off, and they're going. These kids are timing it. They're timing it. I see they're taking breaks. So I do one loop around the park, and they're still there when I come back, and they're still going on. So I go over and I talk to them. I go, hey guys, what's going on? And they said, well, this guy, has a beef with this guy. And the kid goes, yeah, he said something about my mother. And they go, so we figured the best way to handle it was we were going to control it. It's going to be boxing. Here are the rules. This is what we're doing. We take breaks, and, we're going to settle it this way. And I think they thought I was going to start giving them some shit. And I looked at them and I go, guys, that's fucking amazing. I actually said it to them. It's fucking amazing. I go, it's nice to see men being men. And I said, don't let anybody tell you this is wrong. I said, this is the way to handle something like this. And I said, you know what? I said, after this, you two knuckleheads are probably going to end up being best friends. I said, but carry on, gentlemen, and just walked off. And they were like, they stopped me a couple of times around to talk more. They go, you really think it's okay? And I said, listen, there are going to be people that are going to be uncomfortable with this, but you guys need an outlet. You guys made it a positive outlet. I said, believe me, I deal with a lot of kids that don't do it the positive way. And it was nice to see. But like you said, Mike, there's no outlet. And I'm very concerned about it. I'm hopeful because I see groups like yours and I see people clamoring for this type of information. But you guys got a lot. I mean, you probably don't realize how many people like you're making that kind of a difference in,
Yeah, it's man, we get it in such isolated doses without the 30,000 foot perspective. But I mean, I still get kids and young men and also women who come up to us or me personally And they say, like, I don't know, 5 years ago, 3 years ago, yesterday, I saw something that was, for me, so simple to convey, or something that I really didn't deliberately inject. It was completely organic. And it's like that one thing, I held on to that and it changed my life. And that's so powerful. And it's part of the reason that Fieldcraft exists. One of the things that I've been doing since the beginning origins of my company is I've been bringing people together in person. I've been hosting free seminars, free engagements where people to come together. And I've realized, whether it's preparedness, whatever that thing is, when you see people come together in a positive way, it's something they're missing. I mean, no time in history have we been so disconnected as human beings, with the opportunities to be more connected. I mean, you got 4,000 friends on Instagram, but you don't have a person you hang out with in real life. You live in a apartment building and, you're stacked on top of each other and none of your neighbors. I think that's problematic. Any way that I could get people back to the roots of our primal and ancestral belonging, which seems so simple, but it's so effective, that's what I'm going to try to do. And it's the best side of the business, man. It's what gets me up I've been up since 4 this morning and motivated to do so because of the impacts that we have. If I didn't have that affirmation, I don't know how easy it would be to wake up at 4 in the morning and grind until the late evening. It's good affirmation, and I'm glad it's making a positive change.
Yeah, no, it's definitely mission driven. Probably one of the last areas I'd just like your opinion on, if you got the time, is the state of veterans after they come back. I mean, we just saw what happened with the Afghanistan, debacle. But I've been seeing this for years. I've been, in our business, we only hire veterans, at our range. And what I didn't realize was just the state that we left these kids in, where literally they go from a war zone to 24 hours later, they are checked out, boom, done, back on the street. Good luck. And then when they try to get any medical attention for anything, they're put on just, there's the opiates that were the problem. And then all sorts of other issues where they're just not getting any treatment. And a lot of times the treatments that they are given are more detrimental. And I was just doing there's a video from 1998. It's Kyle Dinkloffer, I think is his name. He was a sheriff that was shot by in a car stop. The guy that shot him was a veteran. Was a Vietnam vet. When I read the whole story, it was just shocking. And this guy had been, he definitely had, TBIs for sure. He was diagnosed as PTSD. 2 years before the shooting, they took him off. They said he was completely dysfunctional, and that the VA, just said, "Hey, listen, we just got to give him benefits. There's nothing he can do." And he ends up killing this officer in just a graphic shootout. And there was interesting training aspects of that to talk about. But it got me thinking again, because I lost 2 of our young Marines, former Marines that worked for us. And one of them just the trigger was, I think it was a breakup with a girlfriend, and he ended up just killing himself. We go through that whole process with our staff. 2 weeks later, his buddy just has his memorial card up that we put up. He had a memorial card up, and then he did the same thing. He took his own life. And when we looked into everything, the medications these kids were given and the way to deal with some of the issues that they had was just horrific. And that got us, focused as a company on looking at that. But I heard you in a podcast talking with Andy about alternatives that you've come in with. And I really appreciated it from your perspective, because I had a similar experience, meaning I was so straight, narrow, and anybody doing anything, like THC or anything like that, or CBD, or, anybody looking at mushrooms or anything like that was crazy. What I've come to learn is people I really respect have been able to get tremendous help from this, off opiates, off of all the crap. They're having normal lives again. They're able to keep their families. what was your experience? What I think would be more interesting, especially in the special operations community, the dirty secret that nobody really talks about, and I really appreciate that you guys did, is all of the assistance that you get from the medical community to keep going on these operations, and the toll that it takes later after the effect. I don't think, because so few people are in the military in our population, I don't think they understand some of the demands we put on our soldiers.
Yeah, over the years of combat, in my experience, we were synthetically treated to get through these diverse and very difficult times. I mean, we were up on uppers for extended periods of time. We were down on downers for extended periods of time. And a lot of that in transition, dealing with not only post-traumatic stress, which I think is the duration of the inoculation of stress, which is a conditional issue, but also the TBI compounding that, has forced us into a situation where we've just turned the blind eye. I mean, look, if you take a service dog, military working service dog, and you take a dog in special operations that's job is to bite terrorists, and you try to put him home on the couch and pet him like he's a house pet and introduce him to your family and your kids, something bad's going to happen. And then what's the solution? You put them down. That's what we're doing essentially with our combat veterans. And my problem in that, obviously as a combat veteran, I'm very intimately familiar with the protocol. The protocol is part of the problem. I mean, trazodone and Ambien in my own case, which are trazodone for sleep, Ambien for sleep at the same time, when trazodone is a antidepressant as well, or felt like a zombie. I was having blackouts with Ambien. I didn't realize there was alternate resources. And this is all becoming right now a thing. Yeah. When I got out of the military in 2016, I started looking at alternative uses of CBD, THC. And I was one of those guys in my 20s, I never drank a sip of alcohol. I didn't even eat sugar in my 20s because I wanted to be the most elite operator I could be. And so I didn't want anything that would pollute my system and my body. And I hit my 30s, got my team sergeant time, and started doing all these different things in the military that compounded all these issues that I had in transition. Well, when I had CBD for the first time, I felt normal. And, activating cannabinoid receptors that are already existing in your system, understanding some of the science, because I'm a science guy, I realized, wow, not only is it not synthetic, but it's useful, it's beneficial, and it doesn't have all these second and third order effects that are making me manic, depressive, suicidal, even in some cases. And you compound that, which is no solutions or the wrong solutions synthetically, with the girlfriend breakup, the trigger, as you described. That's where we start losing people. What I'm afraid we're not prepared for is all of my peers, the overwhelming majority of my peers are still serving. They're command sergeant majors, they're squadron commanders, they're troop sergeant majors. They have fought extended past my time against ISIS for an additional 5 years of 5 to 10 combat rotations. And now they're going to index, and they're going to be biting the kids, biting their family members, biting their friends, and they're going to put themselves down. One of the things that you see in suicides amongst special operations veterans and combat veterans is they're not taking their life because they're weak. They're not taking their life because they've hit a dead-end road. They're taking their life because they don't see themselves as an asset anymore. They see themselves as liabilities. And that's where we have an opportunity. Because if we can come in and we can say, hey, listen, man, not only are you an asset to yourself, to your family, to your community, but to the world, we have some tools that are available for you in finding redefined purpose. Because when you lose purpose, you lose your identity, your persona is nothing. Then you see yourself as a liability. And then the easy answer is checking out because you don't want to burn anybody. We have to be prepared to fill that gap and fill that void. And it starts with conversations. It starts with nonprofit organizations. The government's not going to do it for you. They're not going to do it for us. So we have to put these nonprofits, these 501c3s that are doing good work, like Mighty Oaks Foundation, like Warriors Heart Foundation, that are doing real tangible things affecting people's lives and transition and post-traumatic stress and all these things these guys are dealing with. And I'm afraid, I can't blow smoke in this arena. We are going to see a massive increase in suicides, and it's only going to get worse. It's not going to get better.
I remember talking to a buddy of mine who was a SEAL team commander around 2011. We're hanging out in Coronado, and we're just kind of laughing about, where we're at in the world. And at one point he looked at me, and this is 2011. And he goes, Tim, he goes, we got no idea what's going to happen when everybody comes home. He goes, we've never had this type of a tempo nonstop year after year. He said, and we're doing nothing to help these guys deal with it. He goes, we're just grinding them. We're grinding everybody. And that was back then. It's been another 10 years since, and I can't imagine, I can't imagine that we don't have a better plan for this, because, you see it firsthand. You can just see these guys, and they're just, a lot of guys come home and they're fine, but the guys that need help really need help, and they deserve it. And what's being given, I think it's getting a little bit better. And the private industry has really helped out with a lot of that. But there's got to be an acceptance that these guys, need this. These guys it's not them. It's the person that's reacting is not them. They're damaged and they need some help. And I just don't think I think people give a lot of lip service to it, but I don't think people really understand, what the effects are of something like this. And I think you just gave everybody a harbinger of what's coming if we don't deal with this.
Yeah, and I'll tell people, if somebody's listening to this and they know somebody or they're dealing with it themselves, in my own experience, and this is not equal to all, because it's a very personal experience. CBD, CBN has helped me greatly. I mean, CBD for kind of taking the edge off, because if you're a person who's served in combat, whether you're training or you're doing it for real, your endocrine system is compromised. It's not, your system is not normal. And so, I was a free fall jump master with hundreds of jumps, and, did it for a living. And I had, as a civilian, a panic attack on a commercial airplane. Why? Not because I was in fear, not because I was weak, but because my endocrine system is compromised and my systems needs recalibration. CBN, CBD has helped me greatly, especially with sleep. I started a CBD, CBN company called the Wolf 21. And I started that because I needed it, and I knew veterans needed it. And it's what we're doing in our own way, just like we do with Philcraft and other businesses, and trying to make a positive impact and change. Look, there's incentives for the pharmaceutical industry and its totality to not allow you or to suppress you from using CBD or CBN, even the institutions. But you could use Ambien, which has been proven not to benefit you in sleep. You could use trazodone, which is an antidepressant that makes you depressed. So try some of these alternative means, because in some cases, some guys have nothing to lose.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen the severe cases that, they end up doing, what's it called? Ibogaine. They go down to Mexico, and that's been amazing to watch. That's helped guys get off opiates and stuff like that. And again, listen, I'm not trying to tell people what to do. I'm just saying it's a real problem, and it's just sad that we just leave these guys. We drain them. When we're making them operate, we just grind the shit out of them. But after that, good luck. The machine keeps going, and I just think it's tragic that we're not, we're not making it easier for these guys to get some of these alternatives.
Yeah, we need to focus our efforts on that. That's for sure. And you're absolutely right. Like, the private industry is where we get that help from. I don't think the government is prepared nor advised on the plan moving forward. It's just, I'm 100% permanent disabled as a veteran, and I won't step 100 meters from a VA. I just don't trust them.
No, I appreciate that. Hey, last thing. Where do you see, yeah, you're in the heart of it right now. You got you're building, you've got your mission, you've got your people, you built your community, you've done a really good job building a community. Where do you see our country from your perspective and what you're doing? Where do you see us in the next, where would you see us like in 5 years? If you had to guess on where we're at.
Yeah, I have, obviously in looking at all the things that we do as a company, but also as an entrepreneur, and also somebody who takes self-reliance very seriously. One of the biggest concerns I have is with supply chains, and what I think is the deliberate manipulation of supply and demand, and creating logistical issues. I mean, when you give 15% of your agriculture away to foreign governments in foreign countries, when you're beholden to foreign countries manufacturing surplus, even technology, you are being held hostage in many ways. And so what I do see is the collapse of many systems and infrastructure, whether deliberate or not, compounded with natural and man-made disasters, make the perfect recipe for what we're seeing now on different scales. I mean, I predicted a year prior to COVID, when we were talking about civil unrest, I said the worst case of this would be civil unrest in collaboration with a pandemic. And we had both of those things. And it ended up being, integrity wise, something that is going to hurt us for decades to come. We don't realize it now. It hurts now. We likely won't ever recover to the place that we were prior to the COVID-19. And then it's going to be problematic as we move ahead. So if you look at political infrastructure and how that affects right now metropolitan areas, I would encourage you to look at statistics in California, because that's the microcosm. That's where this country will be in 5 to 8 years. San Jose, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Oakland, California have the highest rate of homelessness, crime, everything bad that you don't want in your civil society. And we're bound to end up that way. And it will be one state at a time. So if you're in a heavy, densely populated metropolitan area that's following the same policies, which are leading these places down the same road of insecurity and unstable environments to raise a family, to hold a job, then you need to move. What I think the benefit of America in the Founding Fathers' original plan was this decentralization of states from the federal government, the central government. And the hope and the best case scenario for me is that a lot of these states start cutting the umbilical cord, and you'll see these states get more insulated. They'll say we don't need the control, we don't need the benefit, and they'll start cutting the umbilical cord, and that might be a good thing. What I would advocate for in just creating that scenario for you is that you simply take that serious and you go, well, if I'm dependent on the infrastructure now, if I'm dependent on the supply chain now, how can I start segmenting myself away from that? And it's not buying the off-grid cabin in the middle of nowhere. It's not burying the bunker, which is a poor idea in the first place. It's, hey, am I tethered to the water system that's tethered to the electricity that if a natural disaster shuts it down would completely destroy my infrastructure in the first place? Well, then you might want to look at a generator. You might want to look at a well, a house with a well. You might want to look at partitioning the food that you get and sourcing your own food, growing your own microgreens in your apartment or your condo. You don't need the chicken coop. You don't need the goat pen. You need to start somewhere. And if you're doing that proactively, you'll start realizing not only is that benefiting you progressively as you scale, but also it's fun, enjoyable, and then get you back to your relationships. What I think is the one thing that we never really talk about is this root of getting back to where we were, where we focused on each other, where our cell phone wasn't the meaning and everything that we sought in life. It was each other. And I think holistically, if you look at that, you'll benefit from it in many ways. And I just hope people take that seriously.
I do too. And just so everybody understands, there are topics on getting prepared, getting ready, self-reliance. You can't do it in a soundbite. You can't do it in a short thing. And, you have provided a podcast that just really it's great. It's awesome stuff to listen to. It's really well explained, and it's so worth people's time. I'm going to, make sure people drive it towards that. I'm going to have all of the, all of your reference points and stuff, but is there anything in particular you'd want people to take a look at, saying this is new to them, saying that they're concerned, but they didn't really know where to go and they're interested? Is there a good starting point for some people, with Fieldcraft?
Yeah. One of the original intents of my business plan was to provide value. Our proposition is value in education, and you could get that completely free. It's not a sales pitch. It's not a marketing tactic. It's us providing information and letting you understand that our company and me individually is not the subject matter expert of all things. In fact, my narrow field of experience is focused on counterterrorism. And that's what I did. That's why I leverage subject matter experts like Kevin Estella, who a 15-year high school teacher, who has a cool story from his origin story from the Philippines, but also has been doing bushcraft survival his entire life based on his dad's teachings. I'm not the expert. I'm not going to teach you how to do bushcraft, but he will. Just like I'm not an expert in personal defense and personal security. That's you. That's Tony Blauer. We're the conduit for that. I think the best starting point, because as you know, because we're on this podcast together, the best starting point is listening to people's experiences. And that starts with the podcast. We have 2 podcasts, the Fieldcraft Survival podcast that I've been doing for years, starting out in my pajamas, talking into a cell phone and a memo, and then evolving into interviewing a lot of subject matter experts. And that's the Fieldcraft Survival podcast. And then my personal podcast is the Mike Force podcast, named after the QRF, the Quick Reaction Forces in Vietnam, where I do interviews of, the former chief of Special Activities Division, who gives you context of counterterrorism, Tony Blauer, who's an expert in combatives and self-defense, and then me talking through different iterations. Start there, 001, and then make your way through that. If it's something you're interested in, that's going to open you up to a new world of this idea of preparedness.
Well, that's awesome, man. I'm going to make sure everybody has all that information to start with. And Mike, I can't thank you enough for taking the time and talking to my audience and letting them know. You've been requested for quite some time. I was great. We had a mutual friend that could introduce us. And I'm looking really forward to seeing what you're doing. I can't wait to have your book come out. We'll definitely push it to our group. And wish you continued success, and just keep up with the mission, my friend. You just got an amazing mission, and it's so needed right now. So again, man, I wish you all the best.
Yeah, Tim, that means a lot, man. Thank you for leading the way. I mean, like I said, you guys are OGs in the space. You're still a mentor and a leader in this industry, and I appreciate the positive affirmation. And yeah, man, I look forward to catching up and reading your book after going through all the things of trying to line out a book. And man, it's cool to see all the things that you did and paved the way for decades. And I'm just new to this space. So thanks for leading that way. Thanks for leading that path.
Well, I appreciate that, man. Looking forward to getting up your way and checking out everything in person, man.
Thanks, Tim.
Hey, take care, man. So, hey, listen, take advantage of what Mike just said. Really what's awesome about long form content that you can get now on the internet via podcasts, via channels like this, is you have the time to really learn. And if you want to really understand how to really do your preparedness correctly, get to Mike's podcast. We'll have it listed in here. And like you said, just start at the first one and just keep going. And what's interesting is, if you make that part of your daily learning, just 5 to 10 minutes a day, and just you go through each one of them, you're going to really get some great information on how to really put together that total package that I'm talking about. That's why I try to bring subject matter experts like this. Believe me, I got a lot of great content, and I hope to take advantage of it, but I want you to hear from voices that I think are great and that I think have unique ways of putting this out. And the guys at Fieldcraft Survival definitely do that. So I look forward to meeting Mike when he's out in Vegas, hopefully probably during SHOT Show. And definitely look forward to a follow-up interview with him. Really, really interesting guy and really cool dude. And please support them. And believe me, they get hit all the time because Mike takes stands on things, and it's not political, as he said. This is it. Stuff that's being inferred as being political is just common sense, and we need a lot more of that right now. So we need a lot more voices like Mike's. Anyways, thank you so much for listening. Please go to timlarkin.com, start putting your self-protection strategy together. Take our masterclass. It's absolutely free. Share this channel, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and until next time, stay safe.